Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Leader Transition Institute's November 2024 Learn, Do, Grow, Repeat. My name is Annie Brock. I'm an Army veteran and Air Force spouse and a teacher and coach of all things mindset, communication, and leadership. And I'm LTI's president and CEO. As you can see, our format is a bit different this month. We're not coming to you live, but you're not going to be disappointed because I've got a great guest with me today. Cheryl Mason is a distinguished attorney and author with a profound commitment to veterans' rights and military family advocacy. She served for nearly 5 years as the chairman of the Board of Veterans Appeals at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, becoming the first woman and military spouse to hold this position. In the role, she led a team of approximately 1,200 people, including veterans law judges and attorneys, overseeing the adjudication of veterans benefits appeals. Under her leadership, the board implemented significant advancements, such as virtual telehearings that enhanced accessibility for veterans nationwide. Cheryl's tenure was marked by a commitment to improving outcomes for veterans and their families, and she nearly doubled the number of hearings and decisions issued while she served there. In March of this year, Cheryl released her first book, Dare to Relate, Leading with a Fierce Heart. Over the course of her professional life, Cheryl realized that leaders generally don't care, understand, or listen to those they are leading because they don't know how to relate. So today, Cheryl is going to share with us why it's important to relate to the people we're leading and how that will benefit all of us and our organizations. So Cheryl, welcome to Learn, Do, Grow, Repeat. We're ready to learn from you.
Hi, Annie. Thank you so much for having me. And I just have to say, I appreciate all you do at the Leadership Transition Institute. You guys do amazing, great work. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to learn from you because you have done some different kinds of things in your career. And I have to say that one of the things that I saw as I was reading your bio, getting ready for this, is that we have a commonality, a similarity that we were in college, we were both poli-sci and psych majors. And I haven't run into too many people who had that double major. So that we have that in common. But you started out at the board as a government employee. You worked your way up, and then you became a political appointee. Then you retired after your time. What drove you to write your book? What was that last straw that set you to writing the book?
Well, that's interesting because, when I retired, everybody suggested that I write a book. And I'm like, there's 100 million leadership books, who's going to listen to me? And people told me, you have a story to tell. And so I started thinking about it. But first, I started listening. And I started listening to podcasts. And I started reading articles. Now, I knew that when I led in the Department of Veterans Affairs, stepping into leadership roles and definitely stepping into the chairman role, that I was seen as atypical, as novel, that my approach was viewed as different. But I didn't realize just how different it was until I started listening. And when I really heard that, the pain in some of the podcasts and the discussions between the employees and leaders about the leaders were frustrated and employees were frustrated and they were talking past each other. And it really came down to the relationships. Leaders focused on results always, because that's what you're trained to do as a leader. And employees are like, well, I can get you results, but I'm still a person. I'm still me. So that's what drove me. It became the book I had to write versus the book I wanted to write.
As you were growing as a leader, are there stories that you remember hearing from people as you went out and listened to them where you were able to make change based on what you heard?
I made change not only based on what I heard, but what I experienced. So as an employee for a long time at different organizations in the federal government, as well as private sector. I experienced different leadership models. That's the best way to put it. And I was frustrated by that, but I knew from listening to my colleagues, particularly in several places, that they were too. I mean, one place I worked, I arrived and I was a new employee, and I was supposed to I had a mentor and I had a boss, but everybody's doors were closed. Right. So, if I had a question, I had to walk down the hall and knock on somebody's door, and you felt like you were interrupting. It was stifling. Right. And you were all in the same place, but you weren't together. Right.
Right.
Well, then walking in a different organization where you were welcomed, you felt like you were part of a team, and people knew stuff about you, which that's okay. I mean, it's a little much, but it's okay because that helped them build those relationships. Right. And so, over the years, experiencing that with different organizations, I saw different leadership styles and along with my colleagues, where we would just say sometimes, if they just take a few minutes and talk to us and listen, we might be able to help them come to a better conclusion than, where they are, just making the decision without us, without our input. And it wasn't always that you had to have everybody's input, but sometimes when you don't know things, it's helpful just to get a read or have a conversation. And I heard about it in organizations. I saw it firsthand. And when I stepped into leadership, I was going to do things differently, and I did.
So I know the story, but would you share with our viewers the story of what happened when you started as the chairman of the board and started visiting the different floors of the building?
Yeah, so a lot of people say, "Oh, you had inside baseball information," because I was a careerist in the same organization, and then I became the political, and it may seem that that's the case, but the culture is still the culture, right? And as a senior leader versus the chairman, I had more control now over the culture, or at least trying to have control over that. And so one of the things, like when I walked out the door to go be sworn in, I walked out the door as a senior executive, and I walked back in the door as the chairman. And so I walked back in the door as a political from a senior executive, and people looked at me like I'd grown two heads, but I was the same person. I'm like, some of these people I'd worked with for 20 years. I'm like, really? And so what I did is I knew I had to set the tone, because they expected me to be like all the others leaders they had seen, political, come in, go for results, go do this, this is how we're going to do it. And I said, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to talk. I'm going to listen. You're going to talk, and we're going to communicate, and we're going to create what I said was board 2.0. It became board 5.0. And so I started by walking around the office building. We had 5 floors, and I would show up at different floors, different times. They didn't know I was coming. And I would just be around, and people would say, "Chairman, you're disrupting the work." We had a union, and the president, the leadership of the union worked for me. And they would say, "You're disrupting the work because you're checking on us." And I would say, I'm absolutely disrupting the work, but I'm not checking on you. I'm checking in, because if I stay upstairs in my office, you're not going to come to me, but you're going to talk and you're going to complain. I know, I lived here. I was one of those. And we talked about it. So I'm here so that you can talk to me. Tell me your concerns. Tell me your issues. Tell me what you need. And out of that, those simple things like walking around, engaging people, doing it over and over again, right? Showing up, being there a couple hours a day, not every day, but when you could carve the time, came ideas and suggestions. And one of those changed the trajectory of the organization within months of me taking the job, because it allowed me to provide tools and support for the employees to make their jobs better for them, so they could deliver results to our veterans and families quicker. That changed how people felt. One, because I accepted an idea that was put forward and implemented it, but also because it was an investment in them.
And I love that. I love that you were able to do that. I love more that you said you were not checking on, that you were checking in. And there's such a difference because that is what we expect when we
Mhm.
see supervisors out
Mhm.
and about and to go visit a work site or to do a call. There's an expectation that it's a check on, and I love that you were checking in.
Mhm.
So, did you have specific questions that you went out with, or did you just say hi? You know,
I
what?
really, I didn't have, yeah, I didn't have specific questions. When I went out and walked around, it was, it was listening. It was really just being present, being approachable, being accessible, and being visible. Because here's the thing: when you're walking around the team's office, you learn about them, right? You see what they have in their office. Some people had Pez dispenser collections. Some people had, everybody had photos of family members or things, but some people had maps of places they had visited. So you learn things. So you basically develop a baseline for what to talk to somebody about that's not work, because I tried to talk to them about not work issues, right? If you want to ask me about work, sure, ask me. But most of the time was like, how are things going? Are you having any challenges? Because my number one rule with my staff from day one was, if you don't tell me, I can't fix it, right? And people would say, but that's not your job. And I'm like, oh, I think it is. if
Whose job
like
is it then?
if like you can't set the vision or the direction of your organization if you don't know the capacity of your people, the capabilities, their bandwidth, or their challenges. What do they need to do their work, right? But I also did town halls, I did coffees, I had open office hours, but I didn't start with that because I wanted to set a different tone. I was really focused on changing the culture and the mindset.
And what was your goal by changing the culture and the mindset? What did you know in your heart could happen?
I knew that we could be a very efficient, high performing organization that people would want to work at, because like we were before. Like when I first started there many, many years ago, it was that place that people welcomed you and you were part of a team. And it wasn't just about come to work, hang up your person on the peg and get to work and head down, right? It was about relationships, helping each other, succeeding, and working to serve the veterans and the family members that served us. And so I knew that that's the organization we had, but I also knew that they need the confidence, they needed the support, they needed the championship, um, of fighting for them. But that I also knew they knew what it took, but I had to show them that I was focused on that first, because they could deliver the results. I was never worried about not meeting results. I mean, and we blew results out of the water, right? But it was about creating that engagement, those relationships to support each other, because that enabled us then to work together to deliver those results, because everybody felt like they were part of the organization. They were part of the team, and what they did mattered, and they mattered.
And I love that. I think that's key. And unfortunately, so many organizational leaders miss that, is that the results will happen. Better results happen when you put some focus on the people.
Mhm.
So let's talk about your book. The title, uh, how did you come to it? Dare to Relate, Leading with a Fierce Heart. Why? I think I know the dare to relate, because I'm guessing that's because people are afraid. But where did you come? Why did you choose the Leading with a Fierce Heart?
So I had the dare to relate pretty early. That was pretty okay. But leading with a fierce heart kind of struck me one day. So one of the things I've been called my entire life, from a little girl forward, is I've always been called intense. And I don't consider that a negative. Some people do. I don't. But the reason I don't consider a negative is because there is a fierceness in me, and the fierceness is about, it comes from the heart. It comes from wanting to care and support and encourage people, because I learned at a very early age, when I lost my father to suicide at age 4, that people can treat you differently. And my mother would not allow it. She wouldn't allow me to be pushed aside or made invisible, because she said, you're not honoring your father's memory. You're not honoring who he was, and you're not honoring who you are if you allow that. And so she taught me to kind of stand up there and do. And so, you know, when I carved my path, when I was told, no, you can't have a job as a military spouse, that's not how we do things around here. You know, I was like, well, you know, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. And so, but the fierceness was fueled, because I was like, you don't get to tell me or put me in a box and make me invisible. I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to make an impact. I'm here to serve others. And that's where the fierce heart came from.
I love it. I love it. So what are the things that we need to know as we are working on being better relators with our teams?
Well, you know, I think there's a couple of different things. People ask all the time, like, what's the one thing you would tell new leaders, or, you know, and I really don't have one. I have 3.
Okay.
Actually more than 3, but we'll try to keep it to 3. So the first is, you know, be who you are. Okay. Don't hide behind a mask. Don't put a facade on. A lot of leaders think, oh, I have to be this person out in front of people because I have to show them that I'm a leader. Everybody knows you're the leader. They know, right? It's like when I told you my staff looked at me like I had 2 heads. They knew who I was, right? They were
Right.
waiting to see how I was going to act, because actions and behaviors matter more than words. Okay.
Sure do.
So the first thing is be real and be genuine, because when you talk to people and you're genuine, they're going to talk back to you genuinely. Right. And even if you're a leader, that will happen. Not always, but it will. The second thing I think is time. How you invest your time. You only have 24 hours in a day. And many leaders will say, oh, I'm so busy. I can't. Okay. Where are you investing your time? And that's the same for the employees. Where are you investing your time? Are you working with a colleague to help that colleague get done so you can more efficiently work on something else, if that's the way your work works? Or helping a colleague learn something or understand something so they can do their work more efficiently? Yes, it might take a little bit more time from you, but is it worth the investment? Likely, because when you're working together, that's teamwork, that's relationships, and that's actually the number one skill being recruited for today, is that those interpersonal skills and network,
Right.
collaboration. And then I think the third thing is courageousness, and whether you can add a couple things like agility and things like that I think are important. But a leader has to be courageous, and I'm not talking about courageous and taking risk. Of course, that's
Mhm.
you have to do that. Leaders need to do that. But being courageous into listening to new ideas and thinking different ways and listening to new perspectives, and being courageous about putting yourself out there as a person. But the same for aspiring leaders, for a person, whether they're just walked into the job. It takes courage to walk into a new place and then try to get the lay of the land. I mean, I remember how scared I was on every day of a new job, right? How's this going to go? It takes courage. It takes fierceness to do that. And so I think those are really important skills to have. I think agility is a big one too, but those others are probably the top 3.
Okay. And that's, I love that. So we are going into the holiday season, that people are going to be seeing this on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving for the first time. And so we have all the festivities with our families, our extended families. We have things with our work families. Big organizational things tend to do those over the November and December holidays. How can we take the relating and that you talk about and practice that in those group situations?
Well, remember, relationships happen everywhere because people happen everywhere. And at our very core, we're human beings, and human beings want to matter to each other. And that's what we're about. So I think when you're in those circumstances, is look for opportunities to engage with people, talk with people about, what's going on in their lives, what's happening, what trips they have with the families, activities, just it's about making small talk, right? I mean, whether you're with family, whether you're at the office, whether you're at a gala event with a whole bunch of people that you don't know, just having a few minutes and saying, hey, how's everything going? Or, how's, what are you looking for this year? What excites you? What was your big, success for this past year? Just look for something you can talk about that's safe and
Right.
and relatable, and but something that's safe and relatable, but something that is not the weather, something about them. Ask them about them.
And I think that's really key. And I think there's nothing wrong with, and really, if you're not that kind of person, if this is new to you, I think it's a good idea to maybe even Google a couple of questions. When I teach a class on this, I actually have a 4-page PDF full of questions that people can find one or two questions that they can personally relate to and feel comfortable to ask other people. So Cheryl, I have been to numerous large gatherings, and the leaders just mingle with themselves, and and I am always curious about them. I don't feel like I'm missing out from them. But I want to learn about them because I'm one of those people who wants to be where they are, and so I have a tendency, much to my husband's chagrin, to go up and say hi. And introduce myself. And I know that people look at me a little bit differently because I do that. But as a leader who has been in a very senior position, how do you feel about that? Is that, am I doing a no-no, or should more of us be doing that?
More of you should be doing that. Leaders stay in their, like everybody else, leaders stay in their comfort zone. Leaders sometimes don't want to step out either. Like, one of the things people always said about me in any environment that I am, that I work the room, right? And people would see me working the room. Well, I didn't take that as a negative. That means I'm relating and I'm learning and I'm trying to network and learn things, because you don't know what, as you know, what relationships come out of that, right? So, so you should be working the room. You should be talking to the leaders. Why? Because sometimes leaders, or even if they're mid-level leaders or managers or, just new people at work, they don't know what to say. They just aren't sure, right? And leaders in particularly never want to say the wrong thing, right? And so they're very, they stay in their comfort zone, because that way they can talk among themselves, because that's safe. Well, it is safe.
But what I'm hearing is that then the leaders are just like the rest of us. We want to stay in our comfort zone.
Yep. Get out of the comfort zone. I mean, how do you meet people? I can't tell you the number of people that I've met, even as a spouse, a young military spouse, who would go up and talk to everybody, even though I was a full-on introvert. But if you're going to put me in that environment, then I'm not going to sit in the corner, right? So I'm going to go talk to people. And I didn't realize what I was doing until a little bit later. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm just talking to people like they're normal human beings, because guess what? They are normal human beings. We're all normal human beings. And that's something that, people have said to me when they talk to me. They said, you're very approachable. You're very easy to talk to. And I said, good. That means that I'm retaining that, because you have to work at it at leadership. That's the other piece, is sometimes leaders don't do it because they don't take the first step because they don't want to make the person uncomfortable. Right. Sometimes leaders feel like they'll make somebody uncomfortable if they go join a group of their employees. I never had that problem. I just go talk to them. but some leaders feel that way. Right. And, but I think it's worth you going up and engaging with the leader, because then that helps the leader. And yes, other people might be watching and they might have thoughts about it, but they also see that you're courageous enough to go up and have the conversation.
Yeah. And I love that. And at those social functions, if a leader has done what you did and got out to know their team, then it wouldn't be unusual for the leader to be interacting, and it would be more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So share with us the most important takeaway that we need to know going forward.
Everybody is a human being and everybody wants to matter.
I love it.
So if you treat them like they matter, I don't care who they are and what their position is, then they're going to treat you like you matter.
Perfect. That's so perfect. I love that. And that's part of what we preach at LTI, to treat people like they matter. So key. So thank you, Cheryl, for sharing your experience and wisdom with us today. I get out with people a lot, but there are some things that you said that I am going to work harder at. Now I'm going to share your website first up here so that people can see that and know, find where they can learn more about you and your work, because I think it's really important. And then here is your LinkedIn URL so that people can reach out to you and connect with you on LinkedIn. I'm just a big fan of that platform. And so I want to make sure that they know how to reach you. And I'm going to close with just a very small commercial for the Leader Transition Institute and Changing Focus, Moving from We to Me, because if I don't, my team will say, why didn't you? So LTI exists to help people get from where they are in life right now to where they want to be. We do that by providing corporate and government communications and leadership training and coaching. If you're interested in the specifics of what we do and how we do it, please reach out to me via the email that I'm about to put up on the screen here, or you can message me on LinkedIn. Now that what we do with the revenue that we collect from doing the corporate and government communications training is we provide Changing Focus, Moving from We to Me free to service members, veterans of any era, and military spouses. It's virtual, hands-on, interactive. If you've participated in DoD TAP and you feel overwhelmed, underwhelmed, anxious, lost, or alone, we're here for you. We encourage people to participate prior to leaving the military, but joining a cohort at any time after that point is better than not participating. We have had people come through the program who have been off active duty for up to 33 years so far at this point, and they said their lives were changed for the better because they did. And military transition is a team sport. Mm-hmm. Cheryl and I both know that. And as military spouses, we've been through that. Some spouses participate with their service member or veteran, and often spouses are in cohorts by themselves. And I will say that our cohorts are better when there's at least one military spouse in it. You can register for the January 2025 cohort through January 8th, but don't delay. Just do it right now at that link that's on the screen. So thank you, Cheryl, for spending this time with us. Thank you to our viewers for investing your time with Cheryl and me today. I will tell you, it's time for you now to put into action what you've learned from Cheryl, and then join me again on Tuesday, December 17th for another session of Learn, Do, Grow, Repeat. Thank you, and have a safe holiday.